Hello, everybody, and welcome to Clearing the Bases. You might be a little surprised to hear my voice at the beginning of this show, but I felt that because we have 4 guests on this show, that rather than give you a little snippet like I usually do, it might be better for me to open up the show to give you an idea of what you're about to experience. You know, I talk about the ABCA Youth Baseball Summit a lot on this show, but I've never been able to give you a snapshot of what actually happens inside this summit. You know, we have all of our meetings and we sit and we talk, and yeah, I'm sure everybody understands that, but I thought it would be a good idea to bring on as many people as I could that attend the summit, because like I always say in the beginning of every show, get ready to hear from some of the greatest baseball minds out there. Well, these guys are part of the greatest baseball minds out there. They are the greatest baseball minds out there. Not that they're the only ones. There's a lot of guys out there that are really great minds. But these are the guys that are collectively trying to change the landscape of baseball. I mean, we're going to go through stuff talking about, you know, the state of youth coaching. We're going to talk about what resources there are out there, better ways to build coach development pathways, ways to make practice better. There's just so much that we need to get out to the masses that I just thought that this was a great idea. So what we're going to do is, this is part 1, then there's part 2, and there's part 3. So you're going to get an idea of different perspectives, different point of views, and you know what we're trying to do and what is necessary to do to actually create a developmental environment that's good for all youth baseball players. You know, to be able to reach the highest levels of this game, yeah, you got to work hard. You got to get in the cages. You got to do your strength and conditioning. You know, you got to throw your bullpens. There's all of this physical stuff that you need to do, and you need to work hard at it. But don't forget that you also have to get better at the mental side of the game. And one of the ways you can do that is increase baseball IQ by downloading and using the 6-Tool app.
For baseball coaches like you, every game brings measurable progress. However, game time isn't the time for trial and error learning. Instead, have a proactive approach. Use 6-Tool, the best baseball player development tool on the market. We provide a platform to level up your coaching strategy by helping you to quickly identify and address your players' knowledge of the game. By using our easy-to-implement interactive player quizzes, you can assess position-specific issues, overall baseball IQ, and much more. Win more games and develop better overall baseball players with effective off-the-field training. Visit us at 6-tool.com. 6-Tool. Get ahead in the game.
Okay, everybody. I think that this is going to take a little bit more than just putting on a seatbelt to make sure that you don't fall out of your chair. On today's episode, this is a really special one. We're going to take a deep dive into the conversations, challenges, and solutions that came out of the 2025 ABCA Youth Baseball Summit in Austin, Texas. We're bringing together 4 highly respected and forward-thinking leaders in the game, each who played a significant role in shaping the Youth Baseball Summit, which concluded its 4th edition this past November. First, we have our leader, Rob Hahne. He is the founder and creator of the Youth Baseball Summit. He's a member of the ABCA Board of Directors, chair of the Youth Committee, and newly elected ABCA 4th Vice President. Rob has been leading the national push to elevate coaching education, improve parent engagement, and create a safer, healthier environment for young athletes. We're also joined by Duke Baxter, founder of the Zone Sports Academy, creator of Dominate the Diamond, and one of the most influential coaching educators in the country. Next, we welcome Mike Cassidy. He is the head baseball coach at Marymount University. Mike brings a critical perspective to this conversation. He sees firsthand how a player's youth experience impacts them years later. And finally, we have Deven Morgan, Director of Youth Baseball at Driveline Baseball. Deven has been at the forefront of bringing evidence-based, data-informed training to kids in a way that actually fits their stage of development. 4 leaders, 4 perspectives, 1 common mission to make youth baseball better for the kids who play it. Welcome to the show, guys.
Happy to be here.
Let's go. We're excited.
Happy to be here, Jimmy. You're the man.
Thank you.
It's good to see all you guys again. You know, we were all together just a few weeks ago, and I thought it'd be a good idea to try and take what we did at the Youth Summit and bring it to the world and let them hear what we're trying to do. So let's jump into it real quick, and let's go, and I'm going by order of how I see you guys on my screen. Talk to us about what you took away from this year's summit. And Mike, we're going to start with you.
Progress that's kind of jumping leaps and bounds every single year. I was fortunate enough to be at the very first one in Tyson's Corner 4 years ago, and just amazing ideas coming out of every single one every year that we've done it. And the guys that are jumping on board from the top of the game when you're talking about Major League Baseball, and all the brilliant minds from all over the country. We were just talking about like-minded people that want to get together and do what's best for our game. And it starts with the youth, and just progress. Really, the ideas really are starting to be implemented, and I couldn't be more happy to see that.
Okay, Deven, you're up.
I think for this year's Youth Summit, to borrow a turn of phrase of Kyle Bodie, founder of Driveline, I don't want to say that we're like at the end of the beginning, but it kind of feels like we're getting close to it. And the reason is because of like the group that we have, man. It's just like this 4 years of men and women like actually trying to do something better. I think we had a couple of those summits where it was like a lot of discussion about what the issue is, but I think the last 2 have just fired me up a ton because we're starting to talk about like what actions can we take, what leverage do we have, and who do we need to know, who do we need to bring into these conversations to like actually get some tangible stuff done. And when I talk about this stuff on social media, oftentimes the sentiment is like either A, how do I join, or B, like, well, what are you guys really going to do? And man, if the next 12 to 18 months, lay out the way that I think they're going to, I think you're going to see some real substantial stuff happening that again affects the larger mission, which is to make the game better for the youth. That's the goal.
Duke?
I think everything that you guys said was awesome. And when I looked at the 40 men and women that were in the room, you think, okay, well, it's all about X's and O's. What are you guys going to do for the game as far as, how to do better hitting, fielding, pitching, catching, base running? And it wasn't that. It was a little bit of that, but it was more the passion of everybody talking about everything outside of the X's and O's, about the mental side of the game. How are we going to talk to coaches about pitch counts, and how are we going to talk to, league organizers on how to keep the kids in the game, right? There were crazy stats that were tossed out there where, the average player, when he starts playing baseball, he only plays for 2.3 years. And that's mind-boggling to me, because that means when a kid starts in T-ball at 5 years old, he's only playing until he's 7.5, and he's not even making it to 8. And everybody wants to invest in the travel elite coach. But when you look at that stat, what we're doing with the Youth Summit is we're trying to invest in the ground roots and the bottom, the coaches that are down here that are going to hopefully take that, that 6-year-old all the way up to a 13, so that everybody else can then, help that athlete. So I think that what we're doing, and what, it was great to see everybody, how can we help the game as a whole at every stage? So that's what I was most excited about.
Okay, Rob, you're up.
Yeah, I really liked what Deven just said, sort of the end of the beginning. When we originally put this together, I figured it was going to take 3 to 4 years to get everybody to the table. And now I feel like we're there, right? As Mike and others have said, Major League Baseball was there. Little League's now invested, Babe Ruth, and there's a couple other grassroots leagues that we're finalizing things with, plus event organizers. So it's just so exciting to sort of see. We needed to break down those barriers first, right, so that people would trust us, and see what we're doing is about the game. It's not about any individual corporation or league or anything like that. And I think they see that. And the ABCA obviously provides credibility, being sort of the Switzerland of baseball, and bringing people together, and networking and collaborating. And so it's just truly exciting to see it come to fruition. And it's because of the 39 other people in the room, who have that same passion for the game that we all love. And I'm just so excited for Columbus. We're going to do a couple mini summits, and meeting schedules pretty much full for 4 days, with some people that weren't able to attend the summit. So we're shooting the videos and everything else that we did this year in Austin, youth-based instructional videos for parents, coaches, players. It's just truly amazing where we are, and as Deven just said, I think the next 12 to 18 months are going to be off the charts in terms of the progress that we're going to make.
Yeah, I love the way you said that, Deven. I mean, the end of the beginning, that I don't think you could have summed it up any better. That was beautiful. Let's just go through everybody and give us what you took away from this year's summit, that was special to you, or that you were glad that we talked about. And anybody, just go whenever you're ready.
We've talked about some of these things prior to, in prior summits, but what I thought was unique and different this year, having Major League Baseball there just brought a certain credibility to what we're doing and what we're working on. And to not only have them there, but to see their excitement of the coalition that we've created, who care about our game, and just follow up conversations with them. I'm flying up to New York again next week to talk about them doing some things at the summit. At the convention, with MLB Network coming and things like that. And that all is from what we're working on with the Youth Summit. So I thought that stood out this year. And what they presented on, workloads and arm care, was certainly very interesting to me.
I mean, my gut was going right to the same exact thing, having Major League Baseball there, talking about the things that they were talking about, and sharing in, how important all of the topics that we had just talked about throughout the first 2 days. They came in and were just evenly just taken back by how far we've gotten. So I thought that was super cool. And, like we said before, having all 40 people in the room, all contributing, it wasn't like 7 people doing everything on their own. It was like everybody was contributing. Rob had, round tables, and we were all giving input, and, and then creating the videos that we have to help share our knowledge to all the other ABCA members. I guess the word collaboration and unity is my biggest takeaway of how Rob got everyone to work together to be able to accomplish so much in a short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo the same thing, just from a little bit of a different perspective. I was talking to one of our collaborators that's in the room that runs, some travel events, and they have a lot of kids under their purview. And a comment was made by them about this idea of like trying to push forward universal pitch counts and a system to kind of make sure that all that information flows into a singular place, which I call universal reporting. And I was talking to this guy, and he made a comment to me that was kind of like, yeah, well, when that happens. And it's like there was a presumption like that actually was going to happen, which is just a crazy thing for me. I mean, because I've been lucky enough to be at these since Rob first started doing them, mostly I think probably because I probably just popped off and said some stuff in like the open ABCA Youth Baseball meeting, and Rob didn't kick me out of the room. So fortunately, took me out to Tyson's Corner, and I've been with him since. But last year, like when I presented kind of this basic idea of like, this is an action item that we can push forward, We can have a universal system that controls for pitch count and workload. And if we make sure that there's a reporting system on the back end, you solve the fundamental problem, which is that like right now, if a kid pitches in a tournament event on the weekend and then he pitches in a regular season or a recreational league event during the week, those two things don't talk to each other. And that was just like, it was just an idea, you know, it was just like, hey, do we want to try to put somebody on the moon? And I'm certainly not trying to equate bringing a universal pitch count standard and even just reporting to put a man on the moon, but sometimes it kind of felt like that over the course of these last 2 years. So to be in the room and talk to a tournament provider who was like, yeah, well, you know, once that thing gets done, as if there was an assumption that was going to happen, was pretty mind bending. But I think that again, that kind of just comes back to the fact that the thing that, you know, the Duke has said and Mike has said and Rob has said and Jimmy, like, it's because we're all pushing the thing in the same direction. And you put enough men and women together who actually like give a crap about this game and have the capacity to exert leverage and shift things, and then you know then we're presenting at Major League Baseball offices like that. That's just a, you know, like we had the idea in what, Rob, it was November, and then we're in MLB's office in March. Like, so to me, don't tell me that this game can't be improved. Don't tell me that the base set of like engagement and effectiveness of youth baseball can't be improved, because it was like 4 months from talking about it to being in the office. And now, you know, now we're 8 months removed from that. And it's like, you talk to providers that there's a presumption that this thing is going to happen. So I don't know, man, like that part of it just really, really fires me up. And I feel really privileged to be able to be a part of it.
By far, going into this this year's summit, I was most excited about hearing some of the stuff that Devin's talking about, some sort of way to get everybody. You know, we were in Augusta at the home of golf last year, and I kept trying to compare it to, you know, good golfers punch in their handicap every time. There's a system for that. Getting everybody on some sort of system where anyone and everyone can see how many pitches a kid has thrown each day of the week, I think is so huge. For this one, the excitement was all about hearing about the adjustments to the pitch count system, pitch count 2.0. I went in my business. I also own a travel program and an academy program as well. And my business partner came to this one, and we both went into this saying, whatever comes out with Pitch Smart 2.0, we're going to implement with our program. I don't care what it is. I don't care what it is. This is what we're going to go with. And really talking about that is what I was most excited about coming into and leaving the convention. I can't wait to get it set with our program moving into the spring and summer.
So the thing that amazes me about the summit is that we have guys there from every level, from every corner of every aspect of youth baseball. I mean, from, you know, high school coaches like me from Hopewell Junction, New York, you know, up to major league guys, Hall of Fame major league guys that are there, like just collaborating on the main goal of trying to make baseball a better place. And the thing that gets me is it's all casual conversation. I mean, we break off into these groups and everybody is pleasant. Everybody is just having, you know, very professional discussions. There's no, you know, well, I think my way is better, you know, this type of thing. It's truly a collaboration of a lot of minds, and it's just a wonderful thing to see. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to break off and I'm going to ask you each individually a question, and then we'll take it from there. Let's start with Deven, okay? Because I want to get a little bit into, because we did talk a little bit about data and tech in youth development. So what's the biggest myth about data or tech in youth baseball development?
The biggest miss is that development is like actually possible, right? And part of this has to do with the fact that, look, man, like I don't go out and try to create conflict in my life. Like I'm a very agreeable person. That's not just me saying it. My wife would tell you too. But like I don't try to go out and start stuff. But I reposted something that A-Rod said on his socials last week, and he frames this video as what he would say to a 15-year-old who's seriously considering a career in Major League Baseball. And the first thing he says is, don't pay attention to launch angle and exit velocity. And if you're pitcher, don't pay attention to the radar gun. And his suggestion is that like you should focus on being a hitter, and you should focus on being a pitcher and everything that entails. And then when it comes to like added strength or added exit velocity or added throw ball velocity, you should just wait. Waiting is a horrible development strategy. And I don't care if that's your personal life. I don't care if that's your professional life. I don't care if that's sports specific. Nobody just waits around and gets better. Like that's just not a thing. So when you start to kind of like ask that particular question, is like, well, what's the biggest myth about like youth development and anything technologically related? I think a lot of it is the myth is that that's actually a thing. You know, like we have a kid, Noah Khoury, who's a 17-year-old in our program. He threw a mocap in our biomech lab at Driveline, and he got up to 92.4 on a stalker as a 17-year-old. He came into us like throwing like 74, 75. So he's put on about 16 miles an hour of throw ball velocity in a sustainable fashion over the course of like 2.5 years. Now, just doing that, which meant staying consistent on an arm care program, combining that with like an age-appropriate strength training program, and moderating his workload so that he stays healthy and he doesn't get blown out. All of those things at every iterative step involves some type of technological assessment or confirmation we're in a good place, we're going to back off, etc. So the video that I put up about kind of trying to contradict what A-Rod was saying was like, you can't tell me that like trying to get to this place on a map is really, really important, but also tell me that like compasses are not like a valid tool to help you get there. That's ridiculous. And I guess that's the thing is that like I presume that A-Rod really cares about baseball the same way that I care about baseball, the same way that all of us on this call care about baseball, like in a very deep and intimate place. And because we're all done playing, I think the way that we try to serve in this like service capacity of coaching is that like you just want more kids to play, right? I want more kids to play, not because I want them all to play professional baseball, but because I want them to learn the lessons that the game taught me as like a fairly average to below average player. That's stuff that I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life. So I just want more kids to play it up to the point that like that they can start to learn those lessons, which we generally would think about as like high school. So when I hear people like A-Rod or other commentators kind of stigmatize anything that involves with like trying to improve yourself, like it blows me away and it makes me angry because I feel like you're telling people that there isn't a path to get better, that there isn't a path to improve their own performance. And the best way you can start to do that is assess where you are now. So if you're going to tell me that like radar guns or like a hit track systems is going to anything that's going to record exit velocity, you tell me that that's the devil. Well, like you better not have a tape measure in your house. You better not have a stopwatch in your house because that's technology too. And I'm not saying that there isn't ways that you can misuse technology. There's definitely ways you can misuse a stopwatch or a tape measure, right? What did my dad tell me? Like measure twice, cut once. What did I start doing? I measured once and I cut once and I got it wrong. So like I understand the point that these tools can be used in a way that's not great, but to just like tell kids that there isn't value in assessing their performance and trying to get better, it like introducing to them like to this iterative process of like, hey, you gained a mile an hour. Well, how did you do that? Well, you worked really hard for it. Okay, cool. Like you should feel proud of that mile an hour. You should be proud of that half a mile an hour. So I guess that to me is just like the biggest myth is it ends up being like a very fundamental thing where we kind of deny the fact that you can assess where your performance is now and you can do things to improve it. And when that stuff comes up against like things that are just like fundamental in our game, it just drives me absolutely insane. Like every good hitter at any stage is the one who hits the ball hardest. Like that's just a fact. And we should be able to like crystallize youth training around that idea. Hitting balls hard is good. Hitting balls in the air is good. Now, I would say that like that's fundamentally in line with everything that Ted Williams said in 1971 when he published Science of Hitting, right? And he talked about things like the Williams upswing, right? These are just things that have been in our ecosystem for a long time. But when Ted Williams talks about the Williams upswing, That's Ted Williams, right? That guy is golden and evergreen. We should listen to everything he says. If I tell you should hit it between a 10 to 18-degree launch angle, now I'm the bad guy. We're talking about the same thing. So I guess fundamentally it's just I I wish that more elder statements of the game like that who've played it at a high level to the point that like they're just space aliens compared to normal people. I wish that you could help them get more of a growth mindset approach to understanding the way the technology can actually help development, not hinder it, and not push you down the wrong path.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I always say this because, let's face it, I'm a little bit older. I've been around for a long time. I have that, we'll say, old school mentality. But, okay, I know that in order to grow as a coach and continue to grow, I need to learn about technology. And I'm trying. It's difficult, but I know it has its place. And there's just no denying that.
Well, and
Jimmy, can I jump in on that real quick?
Absolutely.
We need coaches like that.
Yeah, and I think this totally exemplifies what we try to do at the summit, right? Is hearing different voices talking about, who have different opinions, right? If A-Rod was in that room as well, and Billy Wagner talks about it at our summit, right? Like he came in and had some beefs with the Perfect Game PBRs of the world, and then once he sat down in the same room and you start talking and hearing where everybody's coming from, it allows your mind to open up a little bit, right? So no different than old school versus new school, right? Technology versus your high school, your normal high school coach, Jimmy, like us, or at least the older ones like us are going to be more old school. Let's teach them how to play. They're focused too much on the radar gun, or they're turning around to look at the scoreboard on the radar gun after every pitch versus executing a pitch. Well, that's not what Deven's saying. Deven's saying use technology to help them train and develop throughout the year. So I think it's just a perfect example. When you get people in the room and you share ideas, it just opens up everybody in terms of listening. And I think that's a good thing. So I just thought that was a good opportunity to point that out.
Duke, Mike, you have anything to add to that?
No, I think they did an awesome job.
Me and Deven hit on this a little bit at our table, but something that Deven talked about with technology that I don't think a lot of people think about, and to me, it should be the most important use of technology, is he talked about the health and sustainability of that kid, doing it in a healthy way. I think people want performance, but we forget to think that if we are training for health, usually we start throwing harder. Usually we can locate the ball where we want to throw it better. We want to jump to, I'm just throwing harder. But you use technology and you train the right way to make kids healthier, which is going to keep them in the game, which is going to make them have more fun. I think we skip that part. And at the end of the day, they get better results because they're training for health.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, Duke, we're going to put you out front. So, you've trained probably thousands of players, coaches through Dominate the Diamond. What are some of the most common mistakes that you see youth coaches making, even the ones with good intentions?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the biggest one is just winning at all costs, right? Like they forget why they're coaching the game and who they're coaching, the player. We're starting this big push right now, the power of the youth coach, right? So we reached out to a bunch of people and are talking about the first coach that they ever had. And so much of it wasn't the wins and losses and championships and trophies. It was all the life lessons that you learned throughout the time. So for us to be able to help those coaches realize, how do you run a good practice plan? How do you keep the kids engaged on the field? How do you keep them wanting to come back for more and falling in love like we did? And I think the biggest thing is the practice planning, where a lot of these coaches it's a hectic time. There's chaos. They go onto the field, whether they played or didn't play. If I said to you guys right now, okay, you have 10 seconds to scribble on a piece of paper your practice plan, everybody could come up with some sort of game plan, right? And that's the guys that know what we're doing. For these guys that come out and they're like, what am I going to do today? Now they're stressed out. The kids are stressed out that, it's the same routine opposed to putting the time in to create that awesome plan that makes me relax, right? Here's our throwing warm up. We're gonna play catch. We're gonna do our our calisthenics. We're gonna do our we're gonna break up into 3 stations. We're gonna figure out what competition. So we're gonna definitely compete every day. Then we're gonna have some sort of inter squad scrimmaging of some sort again. So we're competing, and we're gonna finish it off like with a positive talk. Like it's creating. How do you create the environment for the kids to where you're creating structure for them? You're getting them to learn more than just the game of baseball, the lessons. And, I think that's sometimes when you see arguments and fights on social media, you see this dad punching the umpire and this umpire yelling at the coach, and you're like, what is going on? But you see it nonstop. You see the parents behind home plate and they're waving to Johnny to throw a curveball or to throw a fastball, or he's yelling at the umpire and now you see the kid doing the same thing. Now the kid's going like this because the dad said it was a strike and he called it a ball. Now the kids go, and it's almost like it's just like this big environmental, like, guys, you're not playing anymore. Coaches, you're coaching the kid. Parents, stay out. Let the coach do what they're doing. So I think a lot of times it's getting the coach to be able to take control of the team and setting the expectations. Hey, parents, here's what your role is right now for little Johnny, and here's what my role is, and here's what little Johnny's role is. And setting that up. No, you can't go into the dugout in the 3rd inning and give him a Gatorade bottle. No, Dad, you can't tell him how to hit while he's up to bat, and like setting that groundwork for them so that the kids can enjoy it. So I think that's, the practice planning is a huge one, setting the expectations and let the kids play their game. I always say that practice is for the coaches and the game's for the kids. Practice is when we grind them and drill them and help them get better, and we work on their skills. And then when it's game time, it's, hey, it's your guys to go have fun, and I'm going to take notes, and whatever you don't do well at, we'll work on in practice. But a lot of these guys do the opposite. They think the games are for them, and the parents think the games are for them. So it's like, so I think that's, some of the things that we work really hard on to get these coaches to understand that they have a lot of power, and they're the ones that are going to get these kids to play again next year or not, and how they go about doing that, sets the groundwork, for them. Because how great is it when it's 7 years, 8 years down, 9 years down the road that coach didn't even realize that Johnny is going to go play in college. Maybe he only coaches him in Little League and that's it. But he set the groundwork, the groundwork to get Johnny to want to keep on playing to get to where he is. We all have those coaches in our life that did that for us, and we're like, man, we're so grateful for them. So I just hope coaches know how much influence that they really have on these kids in the game.
I've often said that as coaches, we're actually coaching 2 teams. We're coaching our players and we're coaching the parents, because everything that you just mentioned, parents in the stands, parents barking at umpires, parents telling their kid to throw a curveball, it's up to us to train them so that they understand that that's not what we do. Guys, jump in on what Duke said.
Yeah, I loved what he said. I try to start coaches clinics that way too. Is think of the coach or the teacher that impacted your life the most, and who was it, what sport was it, whatever it was, and then why, and then from there, how do you pattern your coaching behaviors to be that person in 30 years that player thinks about when they're an adult, and it just says it's perfect, and I think ultimately, right, is we get all these people in the room with the summit and the ABCA and everybody, and then we start creating enough voices that are out there saying the same thing about how to manage youth baseball, how to coach youth baseball, how to parent in youth baseball, and then we start correcting the things that need to be corrected, and give a little perspective, right? When they hear Deven Morgan, Mike Cassidy, Jimmy, you, Duke, everybody, and the other 35 times that by another, 50 people under those 35, 40 people, and now you're truly impacting the game because they're hearing consistent messaging on, both parents and coaches on how to do the right things and how to make sure our kids have fun while they develop and play this game as long as they possibly can versus that 3.3 years. Provide opportunities and education so that they can continue to play until the game says no.
Anybody else on that? Okay, Mike, I'm going to hit you up next. What separates athletes who do well at the college level from those who struggle, and how can youth baseball better prepare kids for the college environment?
That's a great question. To me, I always go back to the guys who are most successful, especially early on, are the guys who stick to what got them there. Obviously, our role is to take the guy that we recruited and try to develop you even more and make you better. But the guys who were the team captains as juniors and seniors in high school, when they come in and they still act like who they are, they act like a team captain when they're a freshman, those guys succeed more than the guys who come in and say, oh, I'm a freshman again, and start trying to change who they are. Come in, you were recruited for a reason, come in and be yourself. And I think that goes back to a lot of the stuff that Duke was just talking about with parent involvement. When you don't let your kids just go out and play, when you're micromanaging them all the time and then they go off and nobody's there to micromanage them anymore, they don't know what they're doing, because a lot of coaches or college coaches are not going to micromanage you. They're going to say, well, if you're not playing as good as I thought you were going to play, then you're not going to play. It's flat out at that point. You know what I mean? So that's huge to me. I'm always looking for the guys that are having fun and are just themselves. They're getting after it just like they always had, and they want to learn, they want to mature, and it's just kind of a springboard of taking them from where they are right now to the next phase of that of their development.
Anybody have anything on that?
Just a quick. I think parents sometimes are misguided in that in order to make a high school team or in order to make a college team, they have to do X, Y, and Z. They have to play for this program, or they have to go to these tournaments, or they have to go pay thousands of dollars to do this, that, or the other, rather than, drawing, and Deven touched on it earlier, drawing that roadmap. Here's where I am. Here's where my child wants to get to, high school, college. They'd love to play college baseball. Most middle school, high school kids you ask that question to are saying yes, right? And so if they want to go play for Coach Cassidy, it's, you have that roadmap and you understand that, player development's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And you're just trying to get better to be able to play at that highest level. Give yourselves those opportunities without putting the pressure and over, focusing up more on the process versus the results. Like Duke said, we just have to change youth baseball and get it a little bit away from win at all costs. In some cases, it's not everywhere, but it's certainly prevalent, too prevalent, and things we got to look at. So, helping guide people to draw that roadmap so they could go play. They'll have the opportunity to go play for Coach Cassidy someday.
Hey, look, I'm only one college coach, but I can speak for anyone in my profession that I know, and it's a lot of people. Parents, I hope you're listening. If you're doing that stuff, especially when your kid's 15, 16, 17 years old, you're bringing them a Gatorade like Duke was talking about, you're teaching from the stands, you are crushing their opportunities. They did nothing wrong. You are crushing it for them. Because we are sitting in the stands watching. We talk about it all the time, and it's the truth. A lot of times when we go out to recruit a player that we're very interested in, we would rather see them go 0 for 4 than 4 for 4. And I don't think people think about it if you're not around the game. We already know you can play. We want to see how you handle things on your own, especially when it comes to adversity. And I know you think that you are helping in the moment, and maybe you are in the moment, but you are not helping your player especially if you want them to go to college. You want to have them in a position to stay on the list, not get written off or not get crossed off the list. And in all honesty, we're talking about life skills. You're not really helping them develop for life either.
Provide them those opportunities to deal with adversity, right? That's what baseball is all about. It's such a mental there's so many mental challenges in the game of baseball because there's so much adversity and failure and there's so much time, right? There's 8.5 minutes of active play in a 2.5 hour baseball game. So what are you doing with those other 138.5 minutes, right? You're thinking negative thoughts or things like that. So use the adversity and the challenges in our game to teach kids versus I think a lot of parents, when we talk about recruiting and retaining players for longer than 3.3 years, we want to recruit them, we want them to have fun, and we want to teach them how to deal with that adversity because it's going to help them with life skills versus, some other sports, there's not quite as many failures, and the timing, it's a 1 hour game versus a 2.5 hour game. But I think that as a sport, we need to sell that, right? We need to sell those adverse situations and those challenges, and we're going to teach life skills through this great game that we all love.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Angela Duckworth talks about grit, right? And everyone keeps talking about, the kids just aren't gritty anymore. It's like, well, parents, if you do things for the kids that they should be and could be doing for themselves, you're stripping them of the opportunity of being gritty, right? If you whine or make an excuse or complain about something, you just eased that off of the kid of, strike three. Okay, who cares you struck out? But as soon as a parent goes, yeah, but that was outside. Now the kid all of a sudden it's like, it was outside. Well, you just stripped them of instead of just being like, I struck out. We have to allow them to be gritty, right? Like we have to teach them those things. We have to make things hard. We have to make practice hard. And, we have to train them in competing and having them beat each other and win. And, when we say, I feel like a lot of times when people say, win at all costs, we're not about winning. Like everyone's like, those guys are so soft. Like, no, everybody that's on this call right now wants to win so bad. Like we all hate losing. There's a difference between teaching your kid how to win the right way and play hard and be gritty and not losing. You guys know what I'm talking about. So I just think that it's not the kid's fault that they're not gritty anymore. It's we do everything for them so fast that we don't allow them to be. Our parents didn't do that for us. They made us do things that were hard and you just figured it out. And that's what happened. So I just think that when you're talking about the college, the player going into college, we're all saying the same exact thing. We have to make it hard for them at the stage that they're at. So when they get into college, they can then handle it.
All righty. You're up next, Rob. So first of all, what I want you to explain a little bit, if you don't mind, is how this concept of the Youth Baseball Summit evolved. How did it start? And then from there, okay, if there was one policy you'd love to see adopted across all of youth baseball, what would it be?
Yeah, it started with essentially we'd meet at the convention every year with our youth committee and our travel committee. And I served on some committees previously with the ABCA as well, way back when coaching certification, believe it or not, 20 years ago. And the issue would be we'd all go to the convention. We'd have a great 2-hour meeting, some side talks, things like that, over a beverage, whatever it may be. And then we'd all jump into our baseball seasons and it'd be like, see you next January. And because we'd all be so busy, right? We're coaching in the spring, summer, fall. And then it was, all right, fall's over, time to start focusing on our game. So very well intentioned and just not enough time or energy devoted to some of these 30,000 foot level items or issues within our game, right? Because each individual event provider or youth association or league is concerned with their own league or association or event or platform or whatever it may be. And that's how it should be, right? But nobody was really looking at, especially the amateur game, from this 30,000 foot level, if you will, to talk about, how to grow and promote our game, how to recruit and retain players, coaches, and umpires. So I said, and guys like Deven and Mike, who were there at the very first one, let's create this youth summit, and we did it intentionally without the ABCA or we didn't name it anything other than the Youth Baseball Summit, because we didn't want the walls to be created where people felt like, somebody was trying to run or govern youth or amateur baseball, if you will. So we just threw it up against the wall, right? And because a guy like Deven, flew in from Seattle, Mike, you only drove about 10 miles, so you don't get a lot of credit. But there was, 20 other local, most of which were local. Jordan Baltimore was there, Ryan Brownlee from the ABCA, and others. And it started small, right? It again, a lot of the people were local, but we all had this vision, and I think we knew it was going to take again 3 or 4 years to sort of get everybody to the table. And because of the way that we structure things, and we understand that there's going to be disagreements, because you all know, right? There's some tense times where people are hammering the showcase baseball or hammering this with academies or technology or whatever. But I think we all do a really good job of just hearing people out and not getting confrontational with anything. So let's not be afraid to talk about the issues, but let's focus on the solutions. And that's how it's grown. And it's really, it's like any corporation. It's all about the people. And we have the right people in the room. And, the 4 guys on this call are a perfect example of that. Your second question, remind me.
If there was one policy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, policy wise, I think the obvious, I'll go with the second one since Deven already mentioned the universal pitch count app. That would be the one for me. But just a simple one that is really hard to believe that we don't have yet is a universal birth date in youth baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, with tournaments, with leagues, just such a simple thing. I'm going to give you 3. So the universal pitch count app, universal birth date. Bats can certainly be one too, but I don't think many people know this. Within the National Federation of High School Sports, NFHS, each state has their own pitch count rules, which mind blown, right? How in the world are we not all following whatever Pitch Smart is? The good news is Pitch Smart 2.0 is coming out. I think there's going to be some tweaks. And so those are 3 or 4 different examples that I can give you that I think can come out of some of the work that we're doing.
And actually, I'll expand on that. I know in New York, it varies sometimes between leagues because,
Wow.
Yeah, like you said, National Federation of High School, so that's public schools. But when I was first coaching, I was in the Catholic High School League, and their pitch counts were different than the state pitch counts. So it varies within state, which is crazy to me.
I'm going to add one more, Jimmy,
Sure.
while we're on this topic. The double first base, I think, is coming within FHS. And then one other one is just coach to player communication is a big one that we need to work on at the high school level. It knocks off roughly 34 minutes per game with that. And ADs will love that. Umpires love that. Parents love that. Coaches love that. Just to be able to teach and be able to, even if you could use those communication devices in practice, think how much more valuable it is in the middle of a scrimmage. You can almost coach from your mic, if you will. So there's a couple more. Sorry.
No, it's great. That's what we're here for. I want to hear it all. All right. So, again, we kind of laid the groundwork, went through everybody and gave opinions on different subjects. So I wanted people to get to know how you think and your thoughts and stuff. So let's jump into stuff that we actually did at the summit, and I'm not sure, when we did this over the past 3 years, but these are things that we have discussed, so I think it would be a good idea to have a little discussion about this. And this is a tough one, okay? And we've talked about the universal coaching certification for youth baseball. And, how can we do it, if we can do it at all, or is it something we should be pushing for?
Yes, we should.
Go ahead, Devin.
I mean, look, if you put a child into a school, right, you're going to have like an orientation or like a meeting with that teacher. And if you go into that meeting with your child's teacher and you're like, hey, teacher Judy, teacher Jeff, tell me where you got your teaching certification at. And teacher Judy, teacher Jeff comes back to you and they're like, yeah, well, I've just been teaching for a while. Like, I just figure it out. Like, you would run, you would not walk, you would run to the principal's office and be like, who put this person in charge of children? That's the system that we have for kind of youth baseball coaching accreditation, right? There's a famous saying by this guy, W. Edward Deming, who says that every system is perfectly designed to get the results that it gets. And this is the system, which is that we don't have a system. So right now, the beautiful thing about it is that like most people start coaching, either you played and you had an idea that you were going to coach, so you kind of move into coaching when you're done playing, or like the conventional parent pathway, of which I am a victim, wherein I went to a Little League board meeting, they said we need coaches, and I was stupid enough 15 years ago to raise my hand and say like, yeah. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me because I found the career that I actually care about. But I say that to say that like I also exemplified all those flaws. When I started coaching, I coached the way that I was coached. And I think all too often, a lot of what we do is we just kind of regurgitate the stuff that was given to us, and we give that like a fairly decent amount of sanctity without a lot of questioning, like, well, how good was that coaching? Or have things changed since I stopped playing? Have we learned more information since I stopped playing? So, I think there is the tricky thing with baseball is you can't kind of like get into it and go, well, this is the right way to teach hitting. And this is the right, because as soon as we do that, now we end up at like this religious discussion between Protestants and Catholics about hitting philosophy. And you can't go there. But the thing that I would love to see us get to is basically just like, let's set some expectations for how we want to train coaches to deal with children. Because that's the first part of the job, at least at the youth level, right? The first part of the job is how do you understand how to coach and engage children, and then there's teaching the skill. But if you don't understand how to engage and coach children in a way that's like positive and affirmational, is going to make them want to show up to your next practice, much less show up to the next season, the skill stuff doesn't matter. Like I literally have a friend of my wife's who the kid plays down in Arizona. Kid's been a good ball player since he was a kid, and he stopped playing when he was, I think he's now either 12 or 13. Because his local select ball coach said some like incredibly regressive and hurtful stuff about him not being fast enough. That tells me that that's an adult that doesn't know how to deal with children, at a very, very basic fundamental level. So when we start to think about things like universal pitch counts and then the structural system behind that, which is universal reporting, so that you can put all this information in the same place, there's nothing that would prevent us from having a layer onto that same system that also tracks things like coaching accreditation, right? And whether that's through USA Baseball, whether that's through any number of providers that do coaching certifications, Driveline being one of them, I think if you start to bring a little bit of visibility into who has and who has not gone through that type of stuff, it's going to tell you a lot about the quality of the coaches that you may or may not be exposing your child to. Things like safe sport compliance, things like a lot of the USA Baseball certifications for just like healthy and acceptable ways for for coaches to contact children. Like right now, you can go through those courses, but there's no visibility unless someone asks, right? And that's kind of the thing. I think if you just understand the delicate nature of dealing with children, and children are not small adults, you want to have some type of standard for how coaches are coached to engage with that player population.
I agree 100% with them. I think it should be basic. And how do you deal with children? We talked a lot about facilitators over the years. We don't need baseball geniuses to make this game grow. We need good people teaching life skills using the game of baseball, which I think I'm at a pretty high level of coaching now, and that's really what I rely on now more than X's and O's is using this game to try to teach young men how to be good men when they enter the professional world and when they want to start their own family and things like that. So I'll piggyback on Deven and say even those coaches that know everything about the game that are young, fresh out of playing, I think the basic certification is just as important for them as it is anybody else, because those guys can easily lose more players than someone who doesn't know how to teach double cuts and bunt plays if they're not treating the kids the right way.
And I'll go to the bottom, right? And I'll go to the, we had a coaches clinic last year and there was 103 coaches and 51 of the coaches never even played Little League baseball before, like never even played baseball. And I'm thinking to myself, like 51 of you are going to be in charge of 12 players that they didn't even know where to start. So we're like when we do our clinics, just like the ABCA, it's like, okay, you're going to put your sneakers on, you have your gloves, we're throwing, we're fielding, we're talking about it, we're on a baseball knee and talking how to communicate to the kids and ways to do things the right way. And so by the end it was a lot of fun, but there needs to be some sort of like the ABCA is, and getting people aware that, hey, there are services and resources for you guys. We need way more of you to, thank God they came there. Think about 51 guys that if they didn't come to our clinic and they go out on T-ball and rookie ball and they're coaching, like, what are they going to do? What's 50 times 12? That's 600 kids that are never playing baseball. That's where, like, you look at those numbers and you're like, that's 600 kids. Like, and we need to grow the game. So, I think that, it's, yeah, I'm 100% in agreement that these guys need to make sure they need to go somewhere that they can get the resources and do this with, because they are so important to our game. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, and jumping in on that, it's Deven talks about creating templates for facilitators, like those 51 that Duke just talked about, right? And we can do that. Give us human beings who know how to connect with children, and we'll create great facilitators and coaches. Give us a coach who thinks they know it all, who played the game through high school or through college, or maybe even a couple years of pro ball, and was really good and expects everybody else to be really good without giving them teaching them the fundamentals or connecting with the kids or whatever else. So I think those are the basics, right? Find the facilitators, both male and female, and provide them with a template, which could be and should be certification. And to me, the biggest issue and why we haven't created certification revolves around every reason that we created the summit, and it's getting everybody to the table. Because if you try to build something the way baseball, amateur baseball, or any baseball is right now, if you try to build something and force feed it to people, walls go up. But if you make them a part of the process and you involve them in decision making and conversations and collaboration, then we have a much better chance of creating these type of systems like certification.
Yeah, because I believe that, like the coaches that Duke described, the 51 that had never even played Little League, I think the common misconception is that it is about X's and O's. I have to learn how to teach them how to execute. I have to teach them how to do this stuff, when in reality, learning to be a coach is so much more than that. That I always felt like that's only a real small part of what we do. The other stuff is much harder, is where we need that guidance. We need that training to be able to understand how to interact with young players. It's like I said, I think the misconception with coaching sometimes is backwards of what people really believe it is. Okay, so let's move on to another topic that we've discussed, and I know this. What is the hardest parent behavior to change, and how do we change it? Who wants to start on that one? Duke.
Yeah, that's interesting. This is a funny one, but not carrying their backpack to the field from the car to the field. Or how many times you see the parents not only carrying their water bottle and their snack for in between games, but they got their backpack off their back. They're carrying their other son and daughter, and then the kids just walk into the field like he's got nothing in his hands. No, that's a funny one that we see all the time. But I think it's disengaging in that a lot of the coaches at 10, 11, and 12, when they say the kid goes on to play in a travel team or whatever, they've coached them, a lot of them, throughout that whole younger process. So now when they do hand them off to another coach, it's like they still want to micromanage every single thing that they do, opposed to stepping back. Anytime a pro guy comes into our facility and we train their son, you don't see the pro guy anywhere. He's letting you do the thing. He's going to get coffee. He's at Wawa. Like, they're like, go ahead. You guys got it. Meanwhile, you have the mom or dad that knows nothing about the game that's ready to rip the fence down after every single swing. It's like, hold on. That's the communication we have to, like, let the kid play. Let him have fun. Let him learn. Let him develop. Let him fail. And just watch. And just watch, ask questions later. Like, but the pressure that they put on them to have to do well and to perform and be like, it's like that's what gets the kids to stop playing. It gets them out of the game, and they don't realize that it comes from a good spot where, like, they're only trying to do their best, but yet don't realize like that's not, it gets back to what Mike was saying. Like, you do that, and then later on in life they can't handle any of the adversities that happen. So I think it's just stepping away a little bit and helping them know that your son's safe, he's going to have fun, and we're going to develop him. So you can now. That's all they want to know. Is he safe? Is he going to have fun? And are you going to develop him? If yes, those things are, then let's go. Go ahead. So that's what I think.
Yeah, and just jumping in on the pressure thing, again, I think most of the time, a vast majority of the time, the parents are coming from the right place, right? They're just trying to help their kids in the best way they know how. Again, we have to teach them what that best way is in a lot of cases. But that pressure, the kids feel the pressure from the parents, right? There's pressure. There's water cooler pressure for parents who are concerned about what status or team that their kids are playing for, what type of championships they're winning, things like that. And kids feel that type of thing. So what I always say to parents is if you have the choice, let me back up. Go play grassroots baseball when you're young, and go just have fun within the community, make a lot of friends, and teach your kids how to love this great game, right? You build that love for the game, everything else becomes easy. From there, when you get to the point where you have a choice to play for whatever team and/or coach, find the very best coach, not organization necessarily, the very best coach that you can on the most competitive team that you can. I don't mean competitive like win at all costs. I just mean at your level where you're a starter and you're getting great coaching. So very best coach, good competition, where you're getting enough playing time in multiple positions, where you're not bottlenecked or forced into playing left field or right field, things like that. And then just, think about, make it experiential for your kids, right? Thinking about, if I know that the coach that they have is teaching them life lessons and teaching them the game the right way, then I've found that great coach, and go sit in the outfield as far away from home plate and the pitcher's mound as you possibly can, and buy them an ice cream and tell them you love watching them play on the way home, right? It's as simple as that. I know it's not that simple, but just a way to sort of break it down.
Anybody else you guys want to jump in there?
I guess the only thing I'll throw out there is just like the parental overreaction, and like anything that rhymes or revolves around that is entirely understandable at a basic level, right? Because we're talking about your biological imperatives to keep your kids safe. The tricky part is when I think, especially with like new coaches and new parents who don't understand that, like, this is a game of, I don't know. Yeah, I don't really love the game of failure thing. I tend to lean towards game of opportunity, but it's an opportunity to figure out how to fail. And that's the game. Like that is always going to be the game. So when you have overly protective parents who respond emotionally to that type of stuff, the issue, like the root issue, is that they're equating failure with danger. And that's where the emotion comes from, because otherwise, why would you respond that way? And I'm not sure quite exactly how to hack it. I mean, it's one of those things, like you go to like an 11U through a 13U game, you're going to hear a lot from the parents. I think most of the time when you go to 18U games, stands are pretty quiet. And there's a reason for that. I think a lot of that is because the parents whose kids have like made it through that battlefield. And again, because of our work with the summit, we understand that every year it's like 1.6 to 1.8 million kids is the difference between the cohort with the ages of 6 to 12 versus 13 through 17. So it's about 2 million kids. So like the kids who like make it through, they get a chance to play 18U baseball. Like those kids are battle hardened in a pretty specific way. And I think most of the parents kind of reflect that. The tricky thing is that like when you're that new parent, and I was that new parent at 9, 10, I think 11, around 11U is when I started to like get my head screwed on straight, I guess is the friendly, not curse word way that I will say it, because you guys know that I always just keep my language very clean. I'm not sure how you like hack that, like other than perhaps some of the stuff that like David Klein is doing with speedball, wherein you're kind of just putting baseball in a framework where the box score means less, and I think again, it's like as adult fans of the game, like you look at that box score and it defines the outcomes. We're also saying that like for youth players, we don't want their experience to be defined by outcome. We want their experience to be defined by process. So I don't know, anything you can introduce to parents along that path to like help them understand that like everything we're talking about here, from dragging your kid's bag to the field for them, or freaking out every time that they have a failure in the game, like they're learning, they're being conditioned by your response. And then what you're doing is you're basically just like training a child to be afraid of failure. And you listen to any coach in any sport, and they're going to tell you that like failure is a learning tool. It's only a learning tool when you don't respond to it emotionally. Like we were at a dinner the other night. I had a friend of my wife's who she started playing fast pitch softball travel when she was like in third grade. By the time that she was 17 years old and was getting offered from colleges, she had no interest in playing collegiate softball because she was just like stressed out, and said that now, as an older adult, she still has like softball nightmares, right? She'll wake up out of a dead sleep. And I mean, that's a panic attack, right? Like that's what we would call that. It's like it's unresolved psychological trauma from an experience. It's defined by outcome, and it's defined by consequence, and it's defined by pressure that's being applied at a period of time where like none of these games actually matter. Like you've got a college coach on the call right now. I can guarantee you that Mike would agree that he's not looking at fourth grade travel ball results. That's not a thing. I don't even know that he cares about 16U and under by and large, especially since the rules have changed. But because parents don't understand like the long tail effect of that stuff, we need something in the interim to kind of help them understand that there's like this overly emotionally thing where you're conditioning a child to fear failure is not going to keep them in the game. And if that's the thing you actually care about, you have to do something different.
Yeah, I mean, I just had my first kid 4 months ago, so I'm an expert on being a parent now. So I don't know how I'm going to be if my daughter decides to play sports. I do know, so I don't want to bash parents and things like that, because I think that this all comes back to education. And I think parent education and coach education at all levels should be hand to hand. I don't even know if it has to be different, to be honest with you. I think you could teach both the same. But I'll tell you, every year, our travel program, we send about 8 teams to the same tournament to finish up every season. It's at the beach. All of our teams are on the big field. I always go up there and I try to help one of our teams. I don't coach one of the teams. I just go help each one of the teams. I'm around every team in our program that's up there. But I always walk over to the 4 fields that have 12 and under going on. And the coaches in general, it's entertainment for me. It's sad, but it's entertainment for me. I walk over there to see what's going to happen next. The coaches that are being paid by these parents are acting like idiots. The parents are acting like idiots. And one of them said the same thing in the facility, but it's the same thing out on those fields. You always see the people who excelled in the sport. They're down the line somewhere while everybody else is just losing their minds. And it's like, over what? Especially the travel. Like, if I could educate and see something positive come out of all this at the travel level, when you are paying for your kid to play, like, that is the epitome of just sit back and watch them play. You're letting go. Just, you're paying for someone to coach them. Sit back and enjoy watching them play. And we all know as coaches, which we've been guilty of it, and as I get older and want to talk right after a game to my team, we all know that whatever you say to someone right after a game goes in one ear and out the other. You shouldn't even do it. It should be, good game, we need to work on this. And then the next day you start talking to them about how we improve. So, dude, it's little kids baseball. This is about fun. Rob said it, like, finish the game no matter what, as long as they played hard, no matter what happens. Let's go out to eat with all of our friends. Let's get some ice cream, and we're blessed to be able to hopefully play tomorrow. You know, that's my thing. Let go a little bit and actually enjoy what you're paying for.
Yeah, Jimmy, if I could jump in real quick,
Sure.
I run a 400 team plus travel league, which is sort of rec based at 12 and under and travel based at 13 and over. And we were having so many issues with 8U to 12U, ejections, suspensions, altercations, that we tracked it. We have this Domo software, and we tracked any and all issues. And we had, I think it was 7.4 times more issues, altercations, suspensions, and ejections than we at 8U to 12U than we did 13U to 18U. And I think that what that shows is we're just way too serious at these younger age levels. And Mike just said it. I was just providing some data to what Mike's talking about. And I think it goes, as Mike said, it goes back to education. They don't know what they don't know, and they think they have to rush winning or player development or whatever it may be, especially as it relates to travel.
And I think if, to your point, Rob, at the younger ages, if we just made parents understand that, like you said, slow it down, have fun. They're going to make mistakes. They're babies still, It doesn't. I've always said that baseball doesn't really become real serious until the varsity high school level. Before that, it should all be development. It should all be fun, rudiments, and that's it. So, let's go down with the very last question here. And what's one message you want every youth coach listening to this show to hear and understand? And Rob, I'm going to leave you for last on this. So let's go right down from top down. Mike, you go first.
This is about fun. Anything you can do to make sure your players are having fun when they leave the field. If they're having fun, you did your job. To me, especially at the grassroots level, and honestly, even older levels, as a coach, I always go back to this. If you can teach your kids how to play catch so that one day they can teach their kids to have a catch with them, I think you've done your job.
If I wanted people to understand one idea, it's that every throw has a cost. And a related idea behind that is that fatigue is your enemy. I think we struggle sometimes to understand that like all throwing kind of counts. Um, and because of that, we put ourselves in a position where kids get fatigued and they continue to throw, and we don't understand like the additional risk that we're exposing them to. I could get into like the science of it and the kinetics and kinematics, but just like put that stuff to the side. And if you just understand that like every throw has a cost, and ideally you are trying to stay out of fatigued throwing as just like a habitual behavior, you're more likely to keep your kid healthy. And the only tricky idea to kind of run in parallel with that is that the a point at which that they get fatigued is a thing that you can be improved, right? Like if you were just going to like decide to go train to go run a marathon, right? You run around the block and you're gassed, and then you give it a couple days and you try to do it again, you're going to be a little less gassed. You do it again, you're going to be a little less gassed. If you understand that idea, you already kind of understand this concept of throwing workload, and you can start to apply it in a way that you can help kids build their endurance for throwing by throwing more, but not like it's not gas pedal down all the way all the time, right? It's understanding that every throw has a cost, and we want to progressively increase their kind of endurance for throwing, and we can get to a safer place that way.
I would say everything in the game, everything that you do starts with you. You know, you have to have energy if you want your teammates to have energy. You have to be positive if you want your players to be positive, right? Like, so you as a coach, your body language and your attitude and your positivity is gonna inject in every single player that you have on your team. So often guys come to the field like, I don't know why our team's so boring. I'm like, because you're boring. Like, go to the field and have fun and be excited. And these kids are coming there for 90 minutes. And for some of these kids, this is the best 90 minutes of their week. You know, you don't know what's going on at home. Like, these kids are coming there like, oh, I can't wait to go see Coach Duke and my teammates and have fun. And so you might be having a bad day, but you need to just tap the door on your way in and just, you got to make it awesome. You got to have fun. You have to be excited about it. And, you know, we said this at the ABCA, I don't know who said the quote, but, you know, it's connection before correction. You have to be able to connect with the players first, connect with the parents, connect with the kids. You can't just go in there and just start cleaning house and fixing kids that are hitting balls over the fence because you don't like what their swing looks like, or change a guy's pitching mechanics because he looks a little funky. Like, they're not going to listen. Like, connect with them first. Get to understand them. Like, really care about the human being, not just their performance on the field. So I just, you know, I think that it starts with you as a coach, and, you know, what you put in is what you're going to get out.
I'll piggyback on what Duke just said. I mean, if we recognize the impact that we can have on kids, and if we can become a lifelong learner and do just a little bit of work outside of our practices and our games, you know, take that not 10 seconds, but probably 10 minutes to create a practice plan every day. The more that you do that, the more that you're going to love coaching, because you're going to see, you know, your kids get better and your kids have more fun when you run a fun and organized practice that's highly energized, as Duke's talking about. Because ultimately it gets back to the very first thing that we talked about today, which was, how can you be that coach that these kids remember 30 years from now when they think about the best coach that they ever had? And it's never, ever the guy or gal who taught you how to swing the bat the best, or taught you how to, you know, throw the hardest, or whatever it may be. It's always going to be about how you impacted their lives, and use this game, right, as a mechanism to teach these life lessons. You know, 5 minutes early, wear your uniform right, anything and everything. And then we just pass this on from generation to generation, and it's just truly awesome. The life lessons that, and the experiences that we could have with our own kids and all these other kids, because there's no more honorable thing in my mind. Teachers are right there with us, but when someone calls you coach and you haven't seen him in 30 years or 10 years or 5 years, you get goosebumps every time, right? So that's what I'll leave you with.
Well, guys, I mean, this has been fantastic. I mean, let's face it, anytime I'm around you guys, it's always fantastic. Rob, I want to thank you for allowing me to be part of all of this. And guys, I mean, I'm humbled, I'm honored to be friends with all of you guys and to be part of moving this forward. I'm really just thank you all so much.
Jimmy, thank you.
Jimmy, you're the man.
Thanks, Jimmy. You're the best.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Jimmy.
You guys have a great Christmas, and I guess I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, pal.
Can't wait.
Now you know why the Youth Baseball Summit exists and why we're able to move forward. We have all of these guys that are just great minds in baseball that can get together, and it's not 5, 10, it's like 40 people from every corner of the baseball world getting together to share ideas to try and make youth baseball better. Now, you have to admit that there are quite a few issues with youth baseball, so somebody needs to tackle this. And, it's like everything we say all the time about trust the process. There's a process to it, okay? Like Deven had said, that he believes that this is the end of the beginning. So it took 4 years for this thing to get rolling, and now we're starting to see progress is being made. I mean, you heard Rob say that the week after we recorded this show, he had a meeting with Major League Baseball to discuss what we're trying to do with the summit to move things forward. I mean, that's pretty powerful that Major League Baseball recognizes that they have to partner up with guys like us to make baseball a better world. Obviously, they're seeing that there's issues too. So listen to what Duke, Deven, Mike, and Rob had to say. Because, again, these are guys that know what needs to be done. And I won't say that we all know how to do it, because we don't. That's why we're there. We're trying to discuss ways to do these things so that it's just a better place for everybody involved. Mostly the players, obviously. We all care about our players. We talk about that all the time. And yes, it's all about the players. But we also want to make it enjoyable for parents and coaches and umpires and just everybody in general. So I want to thank everybody for listening. And there's 2 more episodes coming up with more guys from the Youth Summit that are going to give you even more perspective on what we're trying to do. So, if you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Visit the website at thectbshow.net. Listen to your favorite episodes and please leave us a review. You can also reach out to the show on social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and get this, the old man has finally got us on TikTok. Keeps me young. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover, please drop us an email at clearingthebases@gmail.com. Your feedback helps us bring you the best content and reach more people in the baseball community just like you. And also, let me know if you'd like to be a guest. Until then, coaches and players, keep practicing, stay positive, and remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you on the next one.